This is Heritage Radio. You are listening to the one and only DBK and Insa on what could only be described as the alternative news show. I like to call it The Truth, but I'll get my hand slapped
yes.
by Russell Brand and by our manager, who has said that it's copyrighted and we can't use that name. So,
that's such a shame.
Yes.
This is Insa Haq and DBK. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Heritage Radio on this lovely Thursday night. We were not here last week, I'm afraid. We have to apologise, unfortunately. My mum's not well, so I had to take a day off. And of course,
you understate everything in such a in a really charming way. Your mum had a stroke.
Yeah, I know. Luckily, it was a minor stroke. Excuse me, and she recovered by the next day. But she's very weak, and she needs, care and attention. And she will be getting better. She's gaining her strength.
Yeah.
So that's the good thing,
Yeah.
So anyway, let's kick off. I was going to kick off today with that lovely story this week about the landlord down south in Kent who has banned coloured people because they have a smell of curry, you see, and his explanation is he has to clean the carpets every time they leave, and white people won't buy his properties if there's a curry smell. So wow, what an explanation, and so credible. What do you think?
Bro, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say, you know what, he's got a point. He's got a point. I'm saying, Asian homes have a nice smell, but obviously this guy don't like his curry,
Well, we know what. Well, that's a stereotypical view. Obviously, we do.
Are you saying I've got a stereotypical nose?
There's different levels of curry smells in a home, right? There's some homes that are just kind of saturated with curry smell.
You walk in, you smell the haldi from a mile away.
And some, like mine, you can only smell it for a few minutes after I've done the cooking, and then I open the window and a little bit of air freshener, and that's it, nice and clean again. Nobody can tell. So there's different levels of Asian cooking, different levels of smells, but this gentleman obviously is generalizing every Asian, every curry kind of bias that you can think of.
Is that even allowed?
I don't know. He's been investigated now by the race and
let's whiz through it.
Go on.
A property tycoon who has banned quote coloured people from renting his properties has claimed he is not a racist and would do it again.
Okay.
Well, at least he's sticking to his guns. So hopefully he hasn't got any. Fergus Wilson, one of the biggest UK buy-to-let landlords. How did he become so big when clearly certain parts of his body aren't big, i.e. his brain? He's one of the largest buy-to-let landlords. That's a scary thought if I've ever heard one.
Well, to be honest, it's down south, in Kent, which is a large, British white population.
Yeah.
There's a small minority of Asians and black people. Although I'm not quite sure what the ratio is of black to Asian, but obviously whites are a lot larger. And from that region, obviously, he has a different world view of multiculturalism.
Yes, that's such a diplomatic way of saying it. So people said, he's instructed agents acting on his behalf basically didn't allow coloured people in because he said of the smell of, quote, curry sticks to the carpet. The 69-year-old, whose Kent's property empire is thought to number around 1,000 homes in Ashford and Maidstone areas. Bro, you know what? I heard his accent. I actually saw his video.
Did you?
Yeah, and let's put it this way. I don't think he's a self-made man. I reckon 999 homes were given to him by the Bank of Mummy and Daddy. So issued a series of offensive directives ordering agents at Evolution Properties. Evolution Properties.
Interesting name.
Well, somebody hasn't evolved, clearly. Not to rent to battered wives, single parents, low income, 0 hours workers, or plumbers. Just randomly, let's just stick plumbers in. And people who don't eat crumpets. They're just random list of people.
Well, thank God for that. I thought he was just picking on Asians, but he's picking on anybody who's not upper class, basically.
Yeah, and reading that list, it says battered wives. But knowing his mind now a little bit, I think he actually batters them, is a breadcrumb sort of quoting. He actually.
But what a snobby kind of culture he comes from. I mean, what kind of behaviour is that? That he's banning battered wives, single parents, people on low income. You know, in this day and age, that's a majority of the people.
No, it's not.
I mean, majority of working class people is in certain areas, shall we say.
It's significant. It's
definitely
significant, right? But bro, you know the worst thing is, I'm not being funny, bro. If you brought to my house a battered wife, I'd feel like an urge to help him out a bit.
Yeah, definitely. We are human after all. Some of us are anyway.
Yeah, I mean, single parents. I don't know. I know some single parents that are not pleasant, and some that are. But battered wives, they're the most vulnerable people I can think of.
I know, and it just shows that this person has a bit of a snobby attitude towards other people who are less well off. And I'm glad it's not just Asian people. He's virtually talking about a large segment of the British population there, people who are self-employed on low incomes. And I told you recently there was like a bank report that 16 million people have less than £100 in their bank account.
However, 12 million of those are 5-year-olds.
But it kind of shows you the level of poverty that people live from week to week, month to month in this country, and basically free payments away from being on the street.
Wow.
You know, that is the extent of poverty that is not highlighted.
Yeah, you're right. But you know, bro, this is something else. You know, this guy strikes me as being someone who is so unbelievably out of touch. He's like a character out of the sitcom series Little Britain.
Would you hazard a guess he's a UKIP supporter, or is that going too far?
What are the chances of that?
What are the
chances of that?
You know, I think, like I've just said to you before, that this is a symptom, I believe, of the current climate, that it's open season for certain types of British people to express their views, which they wouldn't normally be allowed to. You know, we have this Brexit, we have this, focus on immigration, and, the extent of how much multicultural, people enjoy or not. And under the current climate, I think these kind of views are coming out more to the front than they normally would.
Let's carry on a little bit more, because I think this story, there's the cherry on the cake that is so... it's so wrong that I don't even think we can say it on radio.
Don't
let's
say it if it's
try.
wrong.
I have this, bro. It's in the Independent. That means it must be okay to say. In a second email to agents, the landlord who evicted 200 tenants in 2014, 99 of which were battered housewives.
You made that bit up.
Yeah, I made that bit up. For being on housing benefits, added no coloured people because of the curry smell at the end of the tenancy. His request was subsequently leaked to the media, at which point dozens of social media users condemned vile and disgusting Mr. Wilson for racism. I think as much as this guy is clearly quite bigoted and narrow-minded, I think calling him vile and disgusting is a bit far.
I'm glad people out there stand up towards it.
Yeah.
I mean, what would the world be like if nobody said anything?
Yeah.
That would be a horror story.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that people have stood up. And in hard times, these are the times when people are counted on what side they're on and how their moral behaviour and what their moral standards are.
Yeah.
So please continue.
There's a great quote by Albert Einstein where he says...
I love your quotes.
Yeah, he says exactly that the world is not a bad place because evil exists. It's because good people stand by and do nothing.
Thank you.
But when you see people like this, you kind of realise even Einstein's wrong sometimes. Responding to the backlash, Mr. Wilson insisted he was, quote, not racist, and then went on to use the N-word several times. His move was an economic decision. An economic decision. I didn't know you could make economic... I don't think George Osborne in his little red briefcase had decisions of that nature. The future of the British economy is contingent on
the smell of his carpet.
Yeah, exactly. Claiming his stance was no different from his ban on the burqa. No, he didn't say that. On letting his properties to smokers and dog owners. Wow. either this guy's a genius, like how can I be, come across as a bumbling idiot, but in reality I sort of juxtapose things that are clearly offensive. You're putting Asians who he's saying leave a curry smell, which I think is fair. He's equating that to dog owners.
Like I was just saying before, there's different levels of smells when you're cooking curry. I'm sorry, I got to say, you can't generalize curry smells. You could generalize people like he's doing, but he's generalizing curry smells, and there should be a scientific study on the levels of curry smells.
Yeah,
because you can't ban all curry smells. So
anyway,
yeah,
let's wrap it up. But just a quick quote from Mr. Wilson. He said, "Sometimes you can't judge a tenant by the jar of curry paste that they're using. You have to investigate further."
Hi, it's Heritage Radio with Insahak and DBK, my co-host, and we were just discussing the lovely story about the landlord in the deep south, the south of England, who banned coloured people from his residences because, according to him, they leave a curry smell in the carpet, and he believes that white people won't buy his houses because of the curry smell. Does he know anything about bleach and other kind of cleaning products that could be helpful?
I think he doesn't realise how popular curry is. That's an asset. That's a good thing.
I know, definitely. I was making a little comment just before that up in the northwest, most landlords are Asians, especially around central Manchester area. And would it be what kind of story would it be if Asian landlords banned white people for certain smells? For dogs, some people do ban dogs, don't they? I mean, a lot of landlords don't prefer animals, and you can't blame them because they do have accidents on the carpet or inside the house. Whereas, I mean, a curry smell, bro, I mean, that's kind of a different context altogether. I mean, that if you have a curry smell, what the other foods, English foods, do have smells as well. We could have done a proper story on this, on food smells. If you did a scientific experiment, you'd have to test whether a curry smell lingers in a house after you've cleaned it, after you've left. And what about other smells? I mean, he definitely said, I don't mind Negroes. But as someone who's grown up in Manchester, I do know that people from, Jamaican people do like saltfish. And saltfish is has a strong odour.
Yeah.
And that does permeate throughout the house.
Yeah. I think you did that was the very zenith of this part of the show, was basically being able to use the N-word like that, and you just used it without any build up.
Well,
there's people at home eating their curries that fell off their chair when you said that.
Well, I'm quoting what he said. He said, I don't mind Negroes.
Yeah.
Which is a term that people don't normally use.
Exactly. It's just so telling that it rolls off his tongue so easily.
Yeah.
Come to think of it rolls off your tongue quite easily. I'm joking. Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about another story for now anyway, because, sometimes we want to touch on self-help issues. So, for example, how you can improve your life, using simple sort of techniques, psychological techniques, spiritual techniques, whatever it is. How can you improve your life? This is something we did a lot of on our previous bunch of shows, which, by the way, the whole archive should be online pretty soon on YouTube, so check us out. DBK and Insahak on YouTube, and DBK and Insa on Facebook. Check us out. Send us any links that you want to listen to, and or you want us to discuss, and we'll dissect them in our usual silly, ridiculous way. Let's carry on. Okay, stop pursuing your day job. Sorry, that doesn't even make sense, bro. We can share a mic. It's fine. We could
you behave yourself. Right?
Stop using your day job as an excuse not to pursue your passion.
What's your passion? Or is that too?
I enjoy using shampoo-based vacuum cleaners to get curries out. No, not really. This guy is making the argument. You hear so many people saying, "I wish I could live my dream, but I don't have the ability. I've got to work this job," and this is something that's quite close to home for us, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's a certain practicality about finding the right balance in life.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I think the best example that comes to mind is Albert Einstein. Einstein.
Your friend Albert Einstein.
Yeah, the guy that I can't stop banging on about because he's the greatest mind of the last century. He basically used to work as a patent clerk while he was coming up with the most radical ideas, the greatest ideas synthesized by the human mind, and the guy was just doing a menial job as a patent clerk. How crazy is that?
You know, it shows that, as we all know, you have to have an income, you have to have a job to pursue your interests.
Yeah, and the second lesson is it ain't about resources, it's about resourcefulness. Oh, I love that bedding. Oh, sounds so good.
You know, we're big fans of 80s music, you know, because 80s music was that era when you had real creativity, you know, when people had real passion and they weren't exploited by the record companies in this day and age. But anyway, I'll start rambling there. You were saying...
I saw this interesting thing though, before I carry on with this, is that, do you know when you look at Band-Aid or Live Aid or whatever it's called, and you compare the 1980s version to the 2000 version, and you look at the 2000 version, they all look the same. It looks like some death camp out of North Korea or something. They're all wearing denim and just, you know, they all look pouting or looking sad, emaciated, whatever. But then you look at the one from the 80s and it's like this amazing multicolored affair. Like, you know, you got Boy George and you got Wham and you've got, everyone looks completely distinct and unique.
Yeah, you know, everyone had their own kind of different hairstyles, different fashions, and people want it to be different.
Yeah.
You know, and here we have the opposite. You know, I think we blame the record companies, but people have to fit a certain mold to sell records now. They have to dress in a certain way, act in a certain way to kind of appease the teenage record buyers, because it's been kind of shown that a lot of young people are the majority consumers of records, of music, shall I say, or records are making a comeback, aren't they?
I believe so.
I believe so. Yes, vinyl records are coming back. Thank you. You know, my childhood there. But anyway, like you were saying before, you know, to find the ability to work and pursue your dreams, you need a balance. You need a lot of practicality. You know, you have to have an income, you have to have a stable home style, you have to have a stable life under your feet, solid ground, before you can decide find the time as well to follow your dreams or follow some alternate careers.
Yeah. So this article basically starts off saying many creative minds in history did not have the pleasure of sitting around only working on what they wanted. They had jobs just like you, because they still had to put food on the table, but that didn't stop them. When someone tells you don't quit your jaywalking, no, don't quit your day job, it often is taken as an insult. The truth is, it's good advice, because your day job is actually what gives you the opportunity to pursue your passion. You may not be taking advantage of it though. Oliver Burkeman at The Guardian took a look at the daily routine of history's most creative minds and noticed some amazing examples of people who worked regular jobs while pursuing their passions. You missed Albert Einstein. How the hell can you miss Albert Einstein in this list? William Faulkner wrote As I Lay Dying in the Afternoons. Can't be that good, I've not heard of it. Before commencing his night shift at a power plant. How crazy. Have you heard of William Faulkner?
Vaguely. I've heard of A. Faulkner. Maybe he's not the right person. Is he a philosopher, thinker?
I don't know, you know.
Go on.
T.S. Eliot's day job at Lloyd's Bank gave him crucial financial security. William Carlos William, a pediatrician, scribbled poetry on the backs of babies. No, not on babies.
You do come out with the strangest things on it.
He's a pediatrician, that'd be funny.
Oh,
Can you imagine that? If he was writing things on the back of babies, that'd be quite funny, that.
I think what you're trying to say in all this kind of oratory is that people have to have stable jobs, kind of real security before they could pursue anything else.
I think what I'm trying to say is this. Do you know, when you look back at all the great physicists of the 17th, 18th, 19th century, you know, Joule, Maxwell, I think maybe Newton and people like that were the exception, but Hooke, Boyle, all these great physicists, Friedrich Bessel in Germany, like any astronomer or physicist you can think of. Actually, back then they were just called natural philosophers, but whatever. Anyone that you can think of, they were all aristocrats.
That's right.
Yeah, and they basically used to just, you know, people like Kelvin, they had the money, the means to sort of fund their own projects. They're rich, and they were able to do, and they were great minds. But think of all the great minds that are working at certain places being exploited. You know, they don't have that amazing
support, the wealth, money, patrons.
Yeah,
because in the past you had to have a patron.
Yeah.
And like similarly with archaeology, you had the antiquarians.
Yeah.
You know, and many of them came from the elite or the upper middle classes.
Yeah.
And a lot of them had patrons, people who supported them.
Yeah.
And especially when they travel around the world looking for treasures, you know, people don't realize that the first archaeologists were actually treasure hunters.
Wow.
You know, that they were sent out to find all these valuable things. And there's no context for them, there's no records for them. We just wanted them in their little cabinets of curiosities, which finally evolved into museums.
Yeah, which incidentally will be the name of our show eventually. Right. But basically, it's like this, you know. Newton was a rarity because, you know, if you were from a poorer background and you got, you know, a so-called scholarship, I don't know what it's called back then, you could go Cambridge, but you couldn't be clever like George Osborne to go Cambridge. You had to be clever, like worthy of being on the £50 note, like like Isaac Newton, to get into Cambridge. And you had to wear different clothes. I think you had to like search, you know, when you'd have to have jobs serving effectively the children of aristocrats.
Wow.
You know, so Newton had to basically carry the bags and serve the food of the people that were, I'm making half of this up, I don't even know.
Anyway, we'll have a little song and we'll come back
let's
in
have a few
more
tracks and we'll be back in a minute or two. You are listening to Heritage Radio with DBK and Insa Haq, and this is the alternative news, kind of like the truth but better, I'd say.
Yes, thank you. That is a biased opinion, you know. Talking about biased opinions, we just finished the landlord story, and you know, good luck to him. And I'm going to say one last thing. You know, it's not just coloured people who make curries, so please be careful. Do not stereotype people over curries. Anyway, let's go to the new story of the week. Article 50. What is Article 50? Let's have a little chit chat about this, because it does affect everybody in the country. You know, the Treaty of Lisbon, you have an Article 50 kind of condition if you want to leave the EU. So we want to outline what this means. And you know, Michael Heseltine had an interview recently.
Love those eyebrows.
You know, and you know, he's an older guy now, but he's still got it. He's still a handsome looking fella, you know. And he was saying, you know, leaving the EU makes Britain more vulnerable, because now you have no basis for sort of negotiating treaties with the EU anymore. It's on their terms if you want to enter their trade markets.
Yeah. Bro, these things are so complicated that I don't even know what it means. You know, so, you know, I think the idea of having elected representatives, you know, it's sort of, it makes sense, because then you have people making decisions about complicated things, you know. Yeah, you know, we have elected representatives because these things are really complicated and it's hard to sort of understand these things.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So basically, I think we should look at Article 50, which is basically known as the Treaty of Lisbon, and it gives any EU member the right to quit unilaterally and outlines the procedure for doing so. It gives the leaving countries 2 years to negotiate an exit deal, and once it's set in motion, it can never be stopped except by unanimous consent, which isn't going to happen, of all member states. No country has ever left the EU before, except for... No, there are no exceptions. Yeah. So, Insert, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I totally agree. The treaty does kind of opt out, give us the opt out for any country that wants to leave. But what is the benefits? Article 15 affects everybody in this country, and people have a right to know exactly what it does outline. What are the details?
Yeah.
And what are the benefits or lack of benefits to the country? Because it was sold on a certain conditions that we had independence, we had power in Europe.
Yeah. I mean, do you know what's... by the way, that wasn't flatulence on anyone's part. That was purely WD-40. Other brands are available, being needed.
Me go funny as well.
It's that curry that I had before.
It's a mixed kabeda.
It's the mixed kabeda, apparently. No, it's just the springs in the microphones and nothing else. Nothing to worry about. No noxious gases. Yeah, so carry on. What were you saying?
I want to say, we should discuss what Article 50 is. I mean, how does it affect this country, the people who live in it? Because a lot of workers' rights came from the EU.
Yeah.
People don't realise this, but it wasn't the British government that stood on your side.
Yeah.
That helped the average British worker in this country. It was EU laws that demanded that the British government give people in this country certain rights.
Yeah.
So what will happen? How will it affect them? Us, shall we say? That is a major. I think that's a major cause of concern, because regardless of what high concepts go on throughout the world, governments, politicians, it's what's your day-to-day life is what really matters to every person in this country.
Bro, one of my pet projects, I'm sort of campaigning behind the scenes. I'll occasionally do shows about these topics, but there's a great line that everyone knows that from the Quran, that to save one life is to save all of humanity.
Yeah, so true.
And there's a Hindu proverb that we started off as being animalistic, we became human, and our journey in life is to become humane. Like the legacy that you leave to your children, the world that you leave, the sort of the contribution that you had in the world, was it positive or negative? These sort of questions. And so when you look at the EU, they had an enormously positive effect on, for example, air pollution, which is a little personal passion of mine. Well, I'm an environmentalist with a capital M, right? So, when you look at, say, for example, on this one specific issue, the European Union was amazingly progressive.
Oh, yeah. I mean, let's remember they cleaned up British beaches, because they brought in the laws that made it, absolute that the British government had to act. It had to be a standard of like you say, a standard of cleanliness along British beaches, and air pollution, of course. So there's climate, there's the environment, so workers' rights, laws, certain legal laws that they brought in to help people, to support people. So what's going to happen to that?
Yeah, I think that a nice example is like I was saying about the air pollution thing. There's an estimated 40,000 deaths in the UK. 40,000. Oh, hello, we got someone calling. Hello, hiya. It's alright, it's fine.
In the northwest, a lot of landlords are actually Asians.
Yeah.
Muslims, people who eat curry.
Yeah.
I don't see them saying, sorry, I don't want any white people here because they eat fish and chips. That has a funny smell around the house. And like Mr. Mohammed just made a point before, students are by far the most
smelly. Just say it.
Smelly, but they're the group that the landlords kind of complain about the most. They do leave lots of messes, and they do cause a lot of maintenance problems for landlords.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's proven, but he's saying, Mr. Mohammed saying that is a point that he wants to bring up. He's obviously a landlord himself.
Yeah.
And he said, let's stick to the facts. And Mr. Wilson, the gentleman, one of the biggest landlords in the country who made these allegations, he's also banned people from other social groups, not just Asian, but single mothers, battered wives, people who are low incomes, people who are more vulnerable.
So basically, if your name is Manjita and and you're a single battered wife and you're Asian, just don't put that. Imagine that. Imagine if you're all of them in one. He'd go into like an epileptic seizure. I cannot process my bigotry. Oh God, that'd be so funny.
Yeah. Sorry that we couldn't hear Mr. Ahmad properly, but next time, please do call him.
He spoke softly, but he spoke very
Strongly.
powerfully. Yes, to our hearts and our minds.
Yeah, let's. We're gonna play a few little songs now, and hopefully you'll enjoy. This is I'm Alive. Hope you enjoy.
Ooh, tasty. You are listening to the one and only Heritage Radio with DBK and Insa Hack. And we've been doing a roundup of the news. Did you want to carry on with the Brexit thing?
I'm not. What it is that we're going through a phase in British society around like history, shall we say? And it's not over yet. We don't know what's going to happen. But what it has done is polarised the country. There's certain segments who are demanding Brexit.
Yeah.
There's UKIP leaders saying recently, I was reading the paper today, we are the guard dogs of the government. We are going to make sure, we have our rights and this goes through. Such a kind of, a hostile way of saying something. There was nothing warm or friendly or supportive for the rest of the British culture. It was very one-sided.
Bro, but generally speaking, when I think of UKIP, the words warm and friendly don't come to mind. Bro, there's this guy that I saw on BBC News that they were asking Spanish expats basically what they thought of Brexit in one word, and so they get this guy to come on, and he says, it's good that they're gonna stop this uncontrolled migration. Dude, you're a British person living in Spain, and you say that with no irony.
I think there's about 2 million British people living in Spain, and they have their own communities. They don't speak Spanish, most of them.
But he's not an immigrant. He's not an immigrant.
What is it?
He's not an immigrant. He's an idiot. No, but I mean, he thinks he's not an immigrant.
Yeah, I mean, they call themselves expats. So British people living abroad are called expats. People from abroad living here are called immigrants. There's a certain kind of deliberate kind of labeling there to kind of publicize one group as acceptable and one as not. Immigrant kind of expresses that you're like a refugee, you're like someone without a life, without a home, who is in need, who needs to come here. And an expat is the opposite, someone who's decided to live in another country, and that country should be grateful. It's acceptable for them to live there without any qualms, without any prejudice, without any ill feeling. So there's a lot of there's a lot of emotional feelings to both sides. But like you say, there's 2 million British people who live in Spain. They don't speak the language. They have their own communities, their own pubs, bars.
Pretty much everything Nigel Farage says about us, it's exactly the same.
And it's just a kind of Eurocentric view or British view that we're okay, we're certain people from a certain group, from a different country, nation, they should be treated differently from people from other countries. And I'm going to say it's countries, rich and poor countries. It's not just colour, it's about wealth status, social status, virtually like class status. But whereas you have a upper, middle and lower class in the country, in the world we have a similar class system. People from poor developing countries are treated as lower classes. People from richer countries, Westerner countries and the Five Eyes countries are treated as more upper class, middle class. And that's just the way the world is. you know, and it's something that we have to fight continuously and struggle against and eradicate in the years to come.
Yeah, true. That was a beautiful dissection.
Oh, thank you.
Of what's going on there. Do you know what? I'm not sure if there's time to sort of go into a whole new story. Should we go into a whole new story?
On.
Yeah, let's
talk about anything.
Anything and everything. Let's talk about. This is something that you might find really interesting, bro.
Okay.
You know, have you heard of the paleo diet?
Vaguely, yeah. Go on, humour me.
It's basically, you know, you get these
caveman diet, is it?
Yeah, it's basically, but it's a reinvention of history by, for example, Americans. You know, you get all these wacky diets coming out of America, and the paleo diet, it's basically people thinking that it's this is how cavemen ate, and they have this this image of, you know, they've seen, what's that film with Raquel?
1 million years BC.
Oh, check.
I always remember the film. Always bra. I don't know which is which.
Yeah, and you know, Planet of the Apes or whatever, and they kind of think about the savage sort of, you know, caveman, and he eats loads of meat and he grabs women and what, you know, it's just this primal sort of force of nature. But in reality, it's so far from the truth. But bro, you know, it's a nice little example of the reinvention of history, you know? So this concept of the paleo diet, in its simplest form, is don't eat anything that a caveman wouldn't eat.
Right.
As if they sort of had some long forgotten nutritional knowledge about what's good to eat and what isn't. But a new study suggests, well, they didn't need a new study because it's pretty obvious that Paleolithic people ate just about anything apart from curry, because then they were scared where they're going to live. If they had gotten the chance to dive bomb a bag of Doritos, they would have. The study by Laura Wayrish from the University of Adelaide confirms that what you might have already been thinking, that cavemen ate whatever they could find, or so that's what their DNA says anyway. They ate loads of meat, like woolly rhinoceros and wild sheep. Others had entirely vegetarian diets. That's amazing. It's like one species, but they had completely different diets.
You know, you kind of slave to the environment around you.
Yeah.
Whatever was within range of travelling.
Yeah.
You know, over years, I mean, they obviously were hunter-gatherers and opportunists. So whatever came, and it was also kind of surmised that they were actually, you know, in the same kind of animals eat like dead bodies and you know, kind of scavengers, really, basically.
Yeah.
So anything and anything went, but you know, you mentioned woolly rhinoceros there.
It's not often I mention wool.
But archaeologists they found a sort of collection of woolly mammoth bones at the bottom of a cliff, and they kind of figured out that these mammoths had been chased and herded over the cliff deliberately.
Dirty little monkeys.
You know, by men and women, shall we say? Not
all right, humans.
Men.
Yep.
You know, and that had to entrap them. You know, scare them where they rushed and panicked and chased them across a cliff, and they fell across and died. And that was one way of trapping meat and trapping animals. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Bro, you know, you'll appreciate this more than most because, unless I've not mentioned this before, unless you've not heard me say it before, Insa is an expert archaeologist.
Yeah, thank you.
And you know, I'm no expert in this, but I've heard this. I've heard the word on the street is that when you analyze collagen and you look at the ancient bones of different animals, you can extract the collagen and you can look at the ratio of carbon to nitrogen, I think,
right.
And then you can determine it comes up. You get a specific value, and that value is based on that individual's diet. And that doesn't tell you everything. But when you look at animals today, you can therefore work out what they would have been eating. So, for example, when you look at a bear and you see it has a specific ratio, and then you see an ancient animal and it has the same ratio, is probably eating salmon and whatever. But when you look at humans, it has a suggestion of an extremely varied diet, whereas Neanderthals did rely much more on meat.
Right, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, in a lot of settlements, they found that they have a certain time period they actually marine life for a few decades or whatever. Then they turned to wheat, land-based foods, crops. Then they went to meat. So they kind of travelled around, and depending on the different generations, they had different types of food.
Yeah, it makes sense, because it's like that's the success story of this human species, that we're able to go even during ice ages to go to every corner of the planet. It's amazing sort of story.
Yeah, I mean, like I told you the other week, I listened to Chris Hedges a lot, and he was saying something really, really poignant, is that, we're not seeing anything new today when the elites, are taking the vast wealth and the resources of the planet.
Yeah.
What's happening is that in ages past, similar things happened, but what's happened today is that the ecological system is being kind of raped of all its resources.
Yeah.
And there's going to come a point when there won't be anything left for future generations.
Yeah.
When you damage the earth, when you have, he was saying that they're chopping the tops of mountains in America now.
Yeah.
There's acid lakes everywhere, and what we're seeing is land being damaged that should be arable land for growing food. There's deserts, there's floods, and it's going to come to a point when large sections of the earth will not be viable to grow things to be fertile, and that will have a detrimental effect on the very large growing human population.
Immensely detrimental. Do you know, have you heard of this thing called the Anthropocene?
I know it's a type of primate, or was a ancient primate.
It's like the name that geologists, or I don't know what you'd call them, geologists are giving to a new epoch, a new era in the planet's system. When you look at say for example stratigraphy, and you're looking at this sort of the layers of rock that have been sort of laid down over millennia, and now all of a sudden you will see, when 100 million years from now, when people, creatures, whatever they might be, according to the Planet of the Apes, it's in the title, it's you'll see a discontinuity. You'll see an actual line in the stratigraphy that's different. How crazy is that?
I know.
And that's the line at which the Industrial Revolution happened. Well, that's when the human print on Earth became significant. How insane is that?
Sorry, excuse me. There's a similar line now that they've seen where the asteroid struck that wiped out the dinosaurs.
Is it iridium?
Iridium, yeah. There's a layer of iridium all across the planet.
Yeah.
In every part of the world, and by that they show that at a certain time something catastrophic happened.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's going to come a point when in the far future people will look back, and by the same kind of methodology, they're going to see that at this point in time, this is when the planet suffered major damage,
trauma,
to the ecosystem, to the climate. You see the way the kind of oxygen was depleted, or nitrogen, or whatever, or what kind of effect it had on the earth. But like I say, what will the future bring for? What was it? 10 billion people in 50 years. There was there was a story in Syria where you had this man with his wife and his children, and they lived in this bombed out city, and it was a terrible image. And his wife, he got her pregnant again. They had like 3 children, and somebody asked him, why are you having children in a city?
So what was his response?
His response was very, very simplistic. Like what else can I do? Which is so sad that he made his family endure this nightmare that they're in. And it just shows that people around the world just have families, have children, virtually on autopilot, has a biological function without thinking. And you don't realise there's millions of children out there that need parents, orphans out there, they need fostering, adopting. And people, instead of, helping them, which you do get as a Muslim or non-Muslim, you get swab, to adopt a child, to adopt a woman with children, children. You know, that is a major thing in our religion. But, you know, you just see that people don't. That is not really the trend. You know, the trend is to get married and have children. And a lot of poor countries, there was a story in Pakistan a few years back where a father murdered his children because he couldn't feed them.
Wow.
You know, it's
so dark.
You know, and it's like, well, why did you have them in the first place if you couldn't support them? You know, terrible. So that is a future story we're going to look at, is overpopulation and the cause and effect, and the results of that population on the planet and on other human cultures.
Bro, don't ever accuse me of bringing the tone down, man. You're talking about a dad murdering his baby because he couldn't feed it.
I know, but
that's the darkest thing we've ever talked about.
I know, but I did read it a few years back, and it just came to mind now.
Yeah.
You know, but one day, you know, there's a saying that they're going to fight wars over water.
Yeah.
You know, that is the next resource that people will fight over.
Yeah.
And with overpopulation, they'll fight over everything. You know, food, like I say, fertile land, resources, and water, because water is the one thing everybody needs. You know, you can live without oil, you can live without gold, orange juice, you know, but when it comes to water, you know, that is a must, it is essential kind of product that we need to survive.
Products. You sound like Donald Trump. I got some products. Yeah. Should we carry on with the paleo diet? I love the way our conversations meander. It's awesome. It's literally awesome.
Go on.
So when people talk about the paleo diet, that's not paleo, that's just non-carb. The true paleo diet is eating whatever's out there in the environment, which in Manchester is basically cheese and onion pasties. Imagine that. I'm on the paleo diet. Can I have some crisps? But yeah, no, do you know what? The reason why I think this is really interesting is it's a nice example of the way that people will make any nonsense up about the past because they don't know. They got their history from films. They got their science from films. They don't know anything about anything, but they think they do. They think they can make a judgment about something because they saw some silly film or some crappy program, and that's it. That I don't need to learn anymore. And that's the number one reason the world is messed up, because people don't actually learn things for themselves or think for themselves.
You're absolutely right. You know, I remember watching a show, this American documentary about survivalists in the US, people who believe there's going to be a doomsday and they're preparing for it. So they live out in these remote farms and they have all their supplies ready and how they're going to save themselves, their own power supply, water supply, blah blah blah. And these people, these old couple, they're not going to be around in the apocalypse anytime soon, but they had everything in jars, coals and all sorts in video going, oh, we will survive in the next century, right? And they're like 80 years old or something, you know. I don't think they kind of realize they're not going to be around in a few years time, but they were preparing for the apocalypse. And there's this amazing story where this American guy, he actually traveled around the country eating roadkill. You know, I'm not making it up.
Where was this?
This is in America. You know, I had to find this documentary series.
Sounds like a charming man.
Charming man. No, but he lived on roadkill. You know,
bro, I don't think you should knock it. What's wrong with roadkill? It's good for you.
Oh man,
it's not.
God.
Bro, it's dead. You know,
he's squashed and dead. You know,
bro. You know what? There's a guy in Bristol that does the same. I think he eats badgers or something. I don't know what. He's got the Wurzel Gummidge accent going on, a little pot belly, and he sort of goes around collecting roadkill.
Oh my!
Just imagine him going on Tinder. You know, what do you do? What do you do in your spare time? Oh, sweetheart. Oh, I like to eat a lot of things, including roadkill.
Dead animals on the road. Dead cats and rabbits.
But, bro, to his credit, he really sold it. And I was, at the end of it, I was like, I won't mind a bit of roadkill myself. Because he was explaining that you get these factory, industrialized farmed animals, and they're all this horrible sort of Hieronymus Bosch image of animals just in this hellish environment. And that's ultimately what goes in your mouth. That's these tortured. Literally, they are tortured. You know, the amount of stress that they endure is horrible. And then you end up eating all that stuff, all that bad stuff, you know? Like, for example, I won't go into detail.
Yeah, please don't.
Yeah, right. But roadkill is wild animal. So there's no fat on the thing. It's like it's been foraging in the bushes. It's had a happy life. It learned to speak Greek.
Yeah, you
what
sound
more do you
so
want from your animal?
romantic saying it, right? But the practicality is, you walk along the road, you see a dead cat with his head smashed in, and you gotta pick it up and take it
I didn't say
home.
nothing about cat. I said herbivores and whatever.
Yeah.
I don't eat cats from Tesco's, do I?
Yeah. But you have to be an opportunist, you say, you know, paleo diet, you know, you
Yeah.
take whatever comes. So if
Yeah.
you see a dead cat, a dead mouse, you know, a dead fox or whatever, you got to take it home, skin it, gut it out, chop it up.
Does that
put it in
include
your-
the one that lives on Donald Trump's head?
I don't know what lives on Donald Trump's head, but
I don't know what lives
it's-
inside his head.
Yeah, is there anything inside his head? Yeah,
It's
the
probably
question.
roadkill meat. But yeah, no. So yeah, no, I'm saying you would pick it up from the side of the road
Yeah.
and put it in a carrier bag.
So this guy in America lives on roadkill. He travels around. He doesn't pay anything for food.
yeah.
You
I
know,
like him.
I do like him because he would
living,
survive
yeah.
in after the Third World War. You know, where we wouldn't. You know, there's
Yeah.
nothing in the fridge. That's it.
Yeah.
We have to eat each other or whatever. But
Yeah.
he would travel around the country,
Just driving around.
drive or walking or whatever. But you know, that's Americans. I have to give them credit. You know, they are tough when it comes to it. I don't think any British person is going to walk around the roads.
I just
eating-
told you about a Bristol guy, bro. what do
You
you
better
want?
find me his name. I think you made
It's on
that
a
bit up.
documentary. I'm telling you, he's a
Alright,
real
alright.
guy. I think he eats badgers. I swear, it's badgers. I'm pretty sure.
Badger is fine.
You might get tuberculosis though. I think so.
You think so?
Yeah, you get tuberculosis. Do you remember the
Oh.
cull? They were calling to badgers
Yeah, that was. I thought that just made that kind of excuse up
because
you
they
know.
just love shooting them.
Yeah, you know, for whatever. But like you say, you know, some groups, some countries would survive an apocalypse, and I think some wouldn't. And I think over here we're used to food in the fridge, a sanitized lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think you could kill an animal unless you had to.
I
You
know.
unless your children were starving, unless you were pushed to the limit.
Well, it sounds like the dad killed this child in that scenario.
know,
They were
I
starving
know.
and he chose to kill the child instead. I
How-
think we got a phone call. Let's see.
Yeah, go on.
Ooh, let's put them on quickly. So we're going to be going soon, any minute soon, but hopefully you will tune in to us again in a week or so. And let's see, let's see the phone calls. It was such a new system. Oh, hello. Answer. Yes. Right. Can you hear us, sir? Hi, madam. Anyone? Can you hear us? Someone should be able to hear us. Hi, can you hear us?
Salam alaikum.
Oh, salam alaikum. How you doing, brother?
Alaikum salam. Part what you're saying is right.
Oh,
After
okay.
the Second World War,
Yeah.
after turn that music off. Turn
Okay.
that music
Yeah.
off.
Turn the music off.
Right,
Yeah.
music's off.
You're very authoritarian, aren't you, sir? Okay. Yeah. Carry on. Yeah. We're listening.
After the Second World War in England, there was a shortage of milk,
Yeah.
so they used to milk everything: cat, dogs, rats, mix it all
Oh,
in.
how can
Wow.
you milk a rat? Are you being?
Yeah, everything, cats and everything, dogs, donkeys, anything.
Wow, that's amazing. That
There
is.
there was shortage of milk, yeah, so it's not that strange. Salam alaikum.
Okay, thanks for that comment, Salam alaikum. Right, I find it hard to believe, but I'm going to take him at face value. This is DBK and It's a Hack, and this has been the alternative news, and we'll be back next week.
Yeah,
same
assalamu alaikum,
time.
and hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you next week.